The ship called Evergreen moved slowly through the dark space between stars. It was a large vessel, painted white with green stripes along its sides. On its hull, the words Human Humanitarian Fleet were written in 12 different alien languages. The ship carried food, medicine, and hope to worlds that had none. Admiral Park stood on the bridge and watched the stars pass by on the main screen. She was a woman of 53 years, with short gray hair and calm brown eyes. Her uniform was simple and white, like a doctor's coat. There were no medals on her chest, no signs of military rank that outsiders could recognize. "Admiral, we will arrive at the system in 6 hours," said Captain. He was younger than her, perhaps 40, with a kind face and strong shoulders. He had served under for 15 years. "Good," replied. "How bad is the famine?" Pulled up the reports on his screen. "Very bad. 3 billion are starving. Their crops failed for the second year. Without our food shipments, half of them will die within 2 months." Nodded slowly. This was the work that humans did in the galaxy. For 300 years, ever since they had first met alien life, humans had been helpers. They sent doctors to sick worlds. They sent engineers to broken cities. They sent food to hungry mouths. The galaxy knew humans as the gentle giants who never asked for payment, who never demanded anything in return. The other species found this very strange. Captain said, "What is the latest intelligence report?" His face became serious. He lowered his voice, even though everyone on this bridge knew the truth. "The Empire is moving ships to the border, 40 vessels so far. Their ambassador has been making speeches about human weakness." "They think we are easy targets," said. It was not a question. "Yes, Admiral, they see our humanitarian ships, they see our trading vessels, they see our diplomats who always choose peace, and they think we have no weapons." Smiled, but there was something hard behind her eyes. "Let them think what they wish." Far away, on the planet Earth, a very different meeting was taking place. Defense Minister Lee walked through corridors that did not appear on any map. She passed through doors that opened only for her fingerprints and her eye scan. Finally, she entered a room that officially did not exist. The United Human Council sat around a circular table. These were the 12 most powerful leaders of humanity, chosen in secret elections that the public never knew about. On the walls around them, holographic displays showed images that would shock the entire galaxy. Ships, thousands and thousands of warships, hidden in asteroid belts, disguised as mining stations, sleeping in the dark spaces where no one ever looked. The true military power of humanity, kept secret for 300 years. "They are testing us," said. She was a tall woman with black hair tied back tight. Her voice was cold and precise. "Yesterday, they captured 3 human colony ships near the frontier zone. 2,000 civilians are now prisoners." Council chairman closed his eyes. He was an old man, over 90 years old, but his mind was still sharp. "Do we know why?" "They want to see how we respond. Their emperor believes that humans are cowards who will pay any price to avoid war." Touched a control and new images appeared. "These are the dreadnoughts, powerful ships. They have conquered 11 species in the last century. They have never lost a war." "And what do you recommend?" asked another council member. Looked at each of them in turn. "I recommend nothing yet, but I want authorization to wake the 7th Fleet if the situation gets worse." The council members shifted in their seats. The 7th Fleet. Even among themselves, they rarely spoke of it. The 7th Fleet was humanity's final answer, hidden in the rings of Saturn, waiting for a day that everyone hoped would never come. "We built all of this hoping we would never use it," Chairman said softly. "For 300 years, we showed the galaxy our best face. We healed their sick. We fed their hungry. We wanted to prove that strength does not require cruelty." "And we were right to do so," said another council member, an old woman named Grandmother as everyone called her. "But kindness is not weakness. We were always prepared to defend ourselves. We simply chose not to advertise it." Nodded. "The question now is simple. Do we let them take our people? Do we pay their ransom and prove that humans can be bullied? Or do we show them what we really are?" The room was silent for a long moment. On the Evergreen, Admiral received a coded message on her private channel. She read it alone in her quarters, her face showing no emotion. Then she burned the message and went back to the bridge. "Admiral?" asked. He could see something had changed in her eyes. "They have taken human prisoners," she said quietly. "Colony ships, families." His hands tightened into fists. "Orders. Continue our mission. Deliver the food to help the hungry, she paused, but tell the crew to be ready. The weather is changing. Understood. Every member of this humanitarian crew had another identity. Every doctor was also a soldier. Every engineer was also a weapons expert. They had trained for years in secret, hoping their skills would never be needed. That night, as the Evergreen continued its journey to the starving system, stood alone at a window and looked out at the stars. She thought about the choice that humanity had made so long ago. When humans first traveled to the stars, they found a galaxy full of empires and wars. Species conquered species. The strong crushed the weak. Violence was the common language of civilization. Humanity could have joined that game. They had the technology. They had the numbers. But they looked at their own history and saw the wars they had fought against each other. They saw the bombs and the blood and the endless cycle of revenge. And they decided to try something different. They would be helpers. They would be healers. They would show the galaxy that there was another way. But they were not fools. In secret, they built their weapons. In shadow, they trained their soldiers. And they waited, hoping that the day would never come when they had to use them. Now, somewhere in the dark, 2,000 human civilians sat in prison cells. They were teachers and farmers and children. They had done nothing wrong except be born human in a galaxy that respected only strength. Touch the cold glass of the window. We gave you every chance, she whispered to the distant stars. We showed you our kindness for 300 years, but if you mistake our mercy for weakness, you will learn a very hard lesson. In her pocket there was a small key that she had carried for 30 years, a key that opened a locker on this very ship. And in that locker, hidden behind medical supplies, was her real uniform, black with silver stars, the uniform of an admiral of war. She hoped she would never have to wear it. But hope, she knew, was not a strategy. The Empire had ruled its corner of the galaxy for 6,000 years. They were a proud species, tall and covered in dark green scales. Their eyes were yellow and cold, like a snake watching its prey. In all their long history, they had never lost a war. They had conquered 11 other species and made them into servants and slaves. Grand Admiral was the greatest warrior that had produced in 500 years. He stood 3 meters tall, and his scales were from 100 battles. When he spoke, his voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. Today, he spoke to the entire galaxy. To the humans of Earth and all their colonies, his voice boomed across every communication channel. You have lived in our shadow for too long. You have traveled through our space. You have traded with species under our protection, and you have paid us nothing. Smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. This ends now. You will surrender your outer colonies to the Empire. You will pay tribute in food and minerals and technology. You will send workers to serve in our mines and factories. This is not a request. This is a command. He leaned forward and his yellow eyes seemed to burn through the screen. You have 7 standard days to accept these terms. If you refuse, we will demonstrate why they have never lost a war. We will burn your colonies. We will take your children. We will teach the galaxy what happens to species that defy us. The message ended. Across human space, people watched in shock. Parents held their children close. Young people looked at each other with fear in their eyes. There were monsters from old stories, conquerors who showed no mercy. And humanity had no army. Everyone knew that. Humans were doctors and traders and diplomats. How could they fight against the greatest military in the galaxy? On the diplomatic station called Harmony, Ambassador received the envoy in a small meeting room. The station floated in neutral space, a place where species came to talk instead of fight. Had worked here for 20 years, helping to end wars and build peace. She was a small woman, only 150 centimeters tall. Her hair was gray with age, but her eyes were warm and intelligent. She had a gentle smile that had calmed angry generals and soothed grieving families. The galaxy knew her as the human who always found a peaceful solution. The envoy was named. He was young for his species, only 200 years old, and he looked at the way a cat looks at a mouse. You received our Grand Admiral's message, said. His voice was full of amusement. What is humanity's answer? Poured 2 cups of tea with steady hands. Please sit down. Would you like some refreshment? Made a sound of disgust. I did not come here for human tea. I came for your surrender. I see, sat down and sipped her tea calmly. May I ask a question first? Ask quickly, my time is valuable. The 2,000 humans your ships captured last week, The families from the colony ships, are they being treated well? Laughed, it was an ugly sound. They are alive for now. If humanity surrenders quickly, they might stay that way. Nodded slowly. I thought as much. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. I am authorized to give you humanity's official response. Snatched the chip from her hand. A recording, why not just tell me? Some things must be seen to be understood. Voice was still gentle, but something in her eyes had changed. I suggest you show this to Grand Admiral personally, and I suggest you watch it alone first. Is this a trick? It is the truth, something they have not seen for 300 years. Finished her tea and stood up. Our answer to your demands is no. We will not surrender our colonies, we will not pay tribute, and we will not leave our people in your prisons. Towered over her, his yellow eyes bright with anger. Then you choose war, you choose death. We choose to defend what is ours. Met his gaze without fear. Tell your Grand Admiral one more thing. Tell him we are coming for our people, and tell him he has 24 hours to release them unharmed. Laughed again, louder this time. 24 hours, you give us an ultimatum, you with your hospital ships and your charity missions. This is madness. Perhaps, said softly, or perhaps you do not know us as well as you think. Left the station still laughing. He took a fast ship back to space, eager to report the foolishness of the humans. On the way, he remembered the data chip and decided to watch it himself. What he saw made him stop laughing. The recording showed weapons tests, human weapons, things that should not exist, a beam of light that cut through a warship like paper, missiles that could not be stopped by any shield, a bomb that made a small moon disappear completely. And ships, thousands of ships, more ships than the entire war fleet, ships that were hidden somewhere in the darkness of human space waiting. Watched the recording 3 times. His scales grew pale with shock. This had to be a trick, a fake. Humans had no military, everyone knew that. For 300 years they had done nothing but heal and help and trade. But the recording looked real. The technology was beyond anything had ever seen. He brought the chip to Grand Admiral and played it for him. The great Admiral watched in silence, his yellow eyes narrowing. A trick, finally said. Human lies, they are trying to scare us with fake images. Grand Admiral, what if it is not fake? Turned on him with fury in his eyes. Then we destroy them quickly before they can use these weapons. Order the war fleet to advance. We attack in 3 days. But the humans said. I do not care what the humans said, roared. They are bluffing. They must be. No species could hide that much power for 300 years. No species would choose to be weak when they could be strong. Bowed his head. Yes, Grand Admiral. As he left, he thought about what he had seen. He thought about the small human woman with the gentle smile and the eyes that showed no fear, and for the first time in his long life, felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. On Earth, Defense Minister Lee received word that they had rejected humanity's counteroffer. She was not surprised. She had studied them for years. They understood only strength. They would need to see it with their own eyes before they believed. She picked up her communicator and sent a single coded word to stations hidden throughout human space. Awaken! Across the galaxy, in asteroid belts and gas clouds and empty regions of space, lights began to turn on. Engines that had been silent for decades began to warm up. Soldiers who had spent their lives pretending to be farmers and doctors opened hidden lockers and found their real uniforms inside. The sleeping giant was opening its eyes. And the galaxy was about to learn why humans had been so kind for so long. Not because they were weak, not because they had no choice, but because they knew exactly how terrible they could be, and they had chosen to be gentle instead. That choice was about to end. The transformation began quietly, in 1,000 places at once. On the humanitarian ship Evergreen, Admiral Park stood in a cargo bay filled with medical supplies. Her crew gathered around her in silence. These were people who had spent years bandaging wounds and curing diseases. Now they watched as their admiral walked to a wall and pressed her hand against a hidden panel. The wall slid open. Behind it was a room that no cargo manifest had ever mentioned. Inside were weapons, armor, and uniforms of black and silver. My friends, said, her voice steady, for 15 years we have served together. We have saved lives on 40 different worlds. We have held dying children and comforted grieving parents. I am proud of every moment of that service. She paused and looked at each face. But today I must ask you to become something else. They have taken our people, 2,000 civilians including 300 children. They will not release them peacefully, so we must go and bring them home. She reached into the hidden room and pulled out her true uniform. Those of you who cannot fight will stay on this ship and continue our humanitarian work. There is no shame in healing, but those of you who are willing, it is time to remember your training. One by one, the crew stepped forward. Doctors who could also shoot, nurses who could also pilot fighter craft, engineers who had built weapons in their dreams for years, hoping they would never need them. Lieutenant was among the first. She had served as a cargo handler for 5 years, carrying boxes of food and medicine. But her real training was in ship-to-ship combat. She had graduated first in her class at the Military Academy of Korea, an academy that officially did not exist. Admiral said, taking a black uniform from the locker, "Where do you need me?" "On the bridge of the Silent Thunder. She has been sleeping in the asteroid belt for 30 years. She needs a tactical officer who knows how to wake her up." Smiled, it was not a gentle smile. "Yes, Admiral." Across human space, similar scenes were happening. In a farming colony near Alpha, a middle-aged farmer named Gong put down his tools and walked into his barn. He pushed aside bales of hay to reveal a door in the floor. Below was a control room that connected to a weapons platform hidden in orbit above. On a trading station in the Orion sector, a merchant named closed her shop early and went to her private quarters. There, she activated a secure channel and began coordinating with 17 other merchants, who were actually intelligence officers. And in the rings of Saturn, the Seventh Fleet began to wake up. These were the largest ships humanity had ever built. Dreadnoughts 5 kilometers long, armed with weapons that could crack a planet in half. They had floated in the ice and rock of Saturn's rings for 50 years, disguised as dead asteroids. Now their engines glowed blue in the darkness, and their crews ran to their stations. The Galactic Confederation watched in confusion and growing fear. Their sensor networks detected ship movements throughout human space, but the readings made no sense. Where had all these vessels come from? The official human fleet was small, a few hundred trading ships and hospital vessels, but these signatures showed thousands of military craft. On the Confederation Council, representatives from 60 species demanded answers. The human ambassador, a young man named, stood at the podium and faced their questions. "What is happening?" shouted the representative from the same species that human doctors had saved from plague just 10 years ago. "Are these readings accurate? Do humans truly have a hidden military?" Took a deep breath. He had rehearsed this speech many times, hoping he would never have to give it. "Honored representatives," he began. "For 300 years, humanity has been a member of this confederation. In that time, we have never started a war. We have never conquered territory. We have never demanded tribute or taken slaves. We have tried to show the galaxy that civilization can be built on cooperation instead of conquest." He paused, "But we are not fools. We saw the empires around us. We saw species like the who respected only strength, and we knew that someday someone would test us." The chamber was silent. "So we prepared. In secret, we built a military capable of defending ourselves. We hid it because we did not want to frighten our friends. We hid it because we hoped we would never need it." His voice hardened. "They have taken 2,000 of our civilians. They have threatened to destroy our colonies. They have demanded our surrender. We declined." "You are going to war." The representative's voice was shaking. "We are going to rescue our people," said. "We have no desire to conquer anyone. We have no interest in empire. When our people are safe, our ships will return to hiding and we will go back to being healers and traders." He looked around the chamber. "But if anyone else wishes to test us, they should think very carefully first." The observer in the chamber laughed loudly. "Words, empty words. You cannot hide a fleet of this size. Our intelligence would have detected it. This is all a bluff." Smiled slightly. "You are welcome to believe that." 24 hours later, they stopped believing it. Their forward scouts reported contact with human ships near the border, not the white hospital ships they expected. These vessels were black as night, covered in weapons, moving in perfect formation. The scouts tried to run. They did not make it far. Grand Admiral received the report with growing unease. He had assembled 800 warships, the largest fleet in history. It should be enough to crush any enemy. But the reports from his scouts were troubling. They spoke of weapons they could not identify, shields they could not penetrate, technology that seemed impossible. "Continue the advance," ordered. "Whatever tricks the humans have, they cannot match our numbers. We will overwhelm them with sheer force." His fleet moved forward into human space. On the bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Dawn, Captain Shin watched the approach on her tactical display. She was a woman of 45 years, with short black hair and eyes like chips of ice. She had spent her entire adult life training for this moment. "All ships reporting ready," said her first officer, a young man named Han Minyu. "The 7th Fleet is in position. The 8th and 9th are holding in reserve. Admiral Park's task force is approaching the prison facility." Nodded, "Open a channel to the flagship." The screen flickered, and Grand Admiral's face appeared. His yellow eyes widened slightly when he saw the size of the ship he was communicating with. "Vessel, this is Captain Shin of the Human Defense Force Dreadnought Eternal Dawn. You have entered human space without permission. You are holding 2,000 human civilians in your prison facility. Release them immediately and withdraw your fleet, and there will be no conflict." Surprise quickly turned to anger. "You dare to threaten us, one ship against 800. His expression did not change. "Look at your sensors, Admiral, look carefully." Glanced at his tactical officer, who had gone very pale. On their screens, more signals were appearing. Human ships dropping out of fold space all around them. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. "You have 1 hour to release our people," said calmly. "After that, we will come and get them ourselves. This is your only warning." The channel closed. Grand Admiral stared at his tactical display for a long moment. For the first time in his 600 years of life, he felt something cold in his stomach. Fear. He crushed it down with anger. "All ships, battle formation. We will teach these humans the price of threatening the Empire." The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The hour passed. They did not release their prisoners. Grand Admiral had made his choice. He believed that numbers would win. He believed that the war machine, which had crushed 11 species, could not be stopped by humans. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Captain Shin stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn and watched the countdown reach 0. Around her, officers worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. There was no panic, no shouting, just calm, focused purpose. "Time is up," said. "All ships begin Operation Homecoming. Rules of engagement are strict. Disable, do not destroy, minimize casualties on both sides. We are soldiers, not butchers." The human fleet moved forward like a wave of shadow. On the flagship screamed orders at his officers. "Fire everything, destroy them." 800 warships opened fire at once. The space between the fleets turned bright with plasma bolts and missiles. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ships did not slow down. Their shields absorbed the attacks like water absorbing stones. Energy that should have burned through metal simply vanished against barriers they had never seen before. The human ships kept coming, silent and dark and unstoppable. "What is happening?" demanded. "Why are they not damaged?" His tactical officer's voice shook. "Their shields, our weapons cannot penetrate them. Grand Admiral, their technology is generations ahead of ours, perhaps centuries." The first human ships reached the lines, and the real nightmare began. Lieutenant sat at the tactical station of the destroyer Silent Thunder. Her fingers danced across the controls with the precision of a surgeon. On her screen, she could see every ship, every weak point, every vulnerability. "Target the engine section," she ordered her crew. "One shot each, clean and precise." The Silent Thunder's weapons spoke. Beams of blue light flashed across space, striking ships exactly where aimed them. Engines exploded. Ships went dark and began to drift. But they did not die. Life support remained active. The crews inside were scared and helpless but alive. This was happening across the entire battle. Human ships weaved between the fleet like dancers, striking with surgical precision. They did not aim to kill. They aimed to disable. Every shot was calculated to stop a ship without destroying it. They had never seen anything like it. Their own way of war was simple: destroy the enemy completely. Leave no survivors. Show no mercy. They could not understand an enemy that fought to spare lives, even the lives of those who would kill them. In 47 minutes, it was over. 600 ships drifted in space, their engines dead and their weapons silent. 200 more had fled when their captains realized what they were facing. Not a single human ship had been destroyed. Only 12 had taken any damage at all. Grand Admiral stood on his darkened bridge, surrounded by the bodies of officers who had been knocked unconscious when the power failed. Emergency lights cast red shadows across his face. His great warship, the pride of the Empire, was helpless. And somewhere out there, human ships were closing in. Grand Admiral, a weak voice said. His communications officer had woken up. There is an incoming transmission. Pressed a button, and Captain's face appeared on the emergency screen. Grand Admiral, she said calmly, your fleet is disabled. You cannot fight. You cannot run. But you can still make a choice. Order your prison facility to release the human civilians, and we will leave you here to be rescued by your own people. Refuse, and we will board your ships and take what we want anyway. His yellow eyes burned with hatred. You think you have won. This is one battle. The Empire has 10,000 ships. We will build more. We will return and... You will do nothing, interrupted. Because after today you will know exactly what we are capable of, and you will know that we showed you mercy when we could have shown you extinction. She leaned forward. Every ship we disabled today could have been destroyed. Every life we spared could have been taken. We chose to let your people live. Remember that, Admiral. Remember it every time you think about attacking us again. The channel closed. Was silent for a long moment, then he gave the order. Far away at the prison facility, the guards received instructions from their Grand Admiral. They did not want to obey, but they had no choice. One by one, they opened the cell doors and released the human prisoners. Sergeant Moon led the rescue team through the prison corridors. She was a small woman, but she carried her weapon with the confidence of a veteran. Behind her came 20 soldiers in black armor, moving fast and quiet. Sector 7 is clear, one of her soldiers reported. We found the families. They are scared but unharmed. Allowed herself a moment of relief. Get them to the transport ships. Gently, these people have been through enough. She turned a corner and found a group of children huddled together in a large cell. They looked up at her with wide, frightened eyes. The smallest was a boy no older than 6 years. He had been crying. Took off her helmet and knelt down. Hey there, she said softly. My name is, I am here to take you home. The little boy looked at her uniform, at the weapon on her belt. Are you a soldier? Yes, I am. I thought humans did not have soldiers. The guards said humans were weak. They said no one would come for us. Smiled gently. The guards were wrong. We are not weak. We just prefer to be kind when we can. She held out her hand. Now are you ready to go home? The boy took her hand. Yes, please. Led the children out of the prison, past rows of guards who stood frozen in shock. The guards had been told that humans were cowards. They had been told that humans were easy prey. Now they watched human soldiers walk through their facility like ghosts, taking back their people without firing a single shot. None of the guards tried to stop them. They had seen what happened to their fleet. They had no desire to test human mercy further. Within 3 hours, all 2,000 human civilians were aboard transport ships heading home. The families hugged each other and cried. The children asked 1,000 questions about the soldiers who had saved them. Parents tried to explain that the helpers they had always known were also warriors when they needed to be. On the eternal dawn, Captain watched the transport ships leave and allowed herself a small smile. All civilians accounted for, Han Minyu reported. 0 casualties on our side, 0 casualties on the enemy side as well. Good. Looked at the tactical display, at the hundreds of disabled ships floating in space. Send emergency signals on all frequencies. Let their rescue ships know where to find their people, and then take us home. What about the fleet? Should we take them prisoner? Shook her head. No, let them go back to their empire. Let them tell everyone what they saw here today. She paused. Fear is a weapon too, and the fear of what we could have done, what we chose not to do, will protect us better than any prison. The human fleet turned and began to move away. Behind them, rescue ships were already approaching, collecting their defeated warriors. Those warriors would carry the story back to they would tell their children about the day they faced humanity's true power. And they would warn them never to test it again. 1 month passed since the Battle of Prime. The galaxy had not stopped talking about it. On every planet and every space station, beings of all species shared the footage. They watched human ships appear from nowhere. They watched weapons that should not exist tear through the mightiest fleet in known space. They watched the Empire, the great conqueror, the undefeated monster, surrender without a single human life lost. And then they watched something even more remarkable. They watched the humans leave. No occupation, no demands for territory, no revenge. The humans simply rescued their people and went home. For most species, this was impossible to understand. Power existed to be used. Victory existed to be exploited. They had conquered 11 species by following this simple truth. And yet the humans, who clearly had the power to conquer anyone they wished, chose not to. The Galactic Confederation called an emergency summit. Every species was invited, even the, who sent a silent observer to sit in the corner and watch. The great chamber was filled with representatives from 200 worlds, all waiting to hear what humanity would say. Ambassador walked to the podium alone. She wore the same simple clothes she always wore. Her gray hair was tied back neatly. Her face showed the gentle smile that diplomats across the galaxy had come to know. The chamber fell silent. "I know why you are here," began. Her voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the room. "You want to know why we hid. You want to know why we pretended to be weak. And you want to know what we are going to do now." She looked across the assembly, meeting eyes of all colors and shapes. 300 years ago, humanity left Earth and found that we were not alone. We discovered a galaxy full of wonders, beautiful planets, amazing species, technologies beyond our dreams. She paused. We also discovered a galaxy full of fear, empires built on conquest, species enslaved by stronger species, wars that lasted for centuries and killed billions. We had a choice to make. We could join that game of power. We had the technology. We had the numbers. We could have built an empire to rival any in history. Shook her head slowly. But we looked at our own past first. We saw the wars we had fought against each other. We saw the weapons we had created that could destroy our entire world. We saw the hate that had divided us for thousands of years. And we decided to try something different. The representative, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, stood up. "You chose to be helpers. You sent doctors to our world when the plague was killing millions. You asked for nothing in return. We thought you were simply good people with no military power." "We are good people," said gently. "Having power does not make you evil. What makes you evil is how you use that power." She smiled slightly. "We built our military in secret because we knew the galaxy was dangerous. We hid it because we did not want to rule by fear. We wanted to prove that kindness could work, that cooperation could work, that a civilization could be strong without being cruel." A representative from a species called the spoke up. They were small beings conquered by the 2 centuries ago, forced to work in mines and factories. "You could have saved us. You could have freed us at any time. Why did you not?" His face showed real pain. "Because intervention is complicated, because we could not free everyone, because starting a galactic war might have killed more people than it saved." She bowed her head. "I am sorry. We made difficult choices and not all of them were right. We are not perfect. We are just people trying to do our best in an imperfect universe." The representative sat down slowly. He did not look satisfied, but he did not look angry either. He looked like someone thinking very hard. "So what happens now?" asked another representative. "You have shown your power. The whole galaxy knows what you can do. Are you going to hide again? Are you going to pretend this never happened?" Shook her head. "No, the secret is out. We cannot put it back." She straightened her shoulders. "So instead, we offer you a choice. A real choice for the first time in galactic history." She touched a control and a hologram appeared above her. It showed a symbol, an open hand reaching toward the stars. "We propose a new alliance. Not an empire. Not a hierarchy where the strong rule the weak. A true partnership of equals where every species has a voice. Where military power is used only for defense, never for conquest. Where we help each other grow instead of tearing each other down." The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions and objections. Some called it impossible. Some called it a trick. Some simply stared in disbelief. Waited for the noise to die down. "I know this is hard to believe. The galaxy has worked the same way for millions of years. The strong take, the weak suffer. That is just how things are." Her voice grew stronger. "But things do not have to stay the same. Humanity proved that a species can be powerful without being cruel. We proved that kindness and strength can exist together." She looked directly at the observer in the corner. The great reptile met her gaze with cold, yellow eyes. "We do not ask for your trust. Trust takes time, but we ask for a chance. Let us prove that there is a better way," she smiled. "And if we fail, if we become conquerors like everyone feared, then you will know exactly where our ships are. You can unite against us. You can stop us, but we will not fail because this is not about power. It is about hope. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the representative began to clap. The sound echoed through the hall. Slowly, others joined. The dozens of species who had suffered under the old order, who had dreamed of something better. The applause grew until it filled the entire chamber. Far away on Earth, Defense Minister Lee watched the broadcast with tears in her eyes. She had spent her life preparing for war. Now she was watching the beginning of peace. On the ship Evergreen, which had returned to carrying medicine and food, Admiral Park stood with Captain and watched the same broadcast. "Do you think it will work?" asked. "Can the galaxy really change?" Was quiet for a moment. Change is always hard. Some species will resist. Some will try to take advantage. There will be setbacks and disappointments. She paused. But for the first time there is a chance. A real chance for something better. She looked out at the stars. "We showed them our teeth. Now we have to show them that we can be trusted not to bite." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to shift. Species that had been enemies for centuries started talking. The Empire, humiliated and afraid, signed the first peace treaty in their history. The conquered species began to speak of freedom, and for once, someone was listening. It would take years. It would take patience. There would be failures along the way. But the silence that had fallen over the galaxy after the battle was slowly being replaced by something else. The sound of voices talking instead of fighting. The sound of agreements being reached. The sound of hope. Admiral Park returned to her humanitarian work. The Evergreen traveled to dozens of worlds, delivering food and medicine and help. People waved at the ship as it arrived, no longer wondering if the kindness was a trick, no longer fearing hidden weapons. One day found her on the observation deck, watching a planet full of refugees receive their first delivery of fresh food in months. "Admiral," he said, "what do you think our legacy will be? The weapons we built, the battle we won?" Smiled, watching children laugh and play on the planet below. "No," she said, "our legacy will be this. A galaxy that learned there is another way. A galaxy that chose hope over fear." She looked at her reflection in the glass. The weapons were never the point. They were just tools to keep us safe long enough to prove something. Prove what? That kindness is not weakness. That mercy is not cowardice. That the strongest thing any civilization can do is choose to be gentle when it has every reason to be cruel. Nodded slowly, he understood. Outside, the stars stretched on forever, bright with possibility. The galaxy had gone quiet, but it was a different kind of silence now, not the silence of fear. The silence before a new beginning. And somewhere in that vast darkness, humanity continued its work, healing, helping, building, proving, one act of kindness at a time, that there was always another way. Always.